Hello and welcome to Module 7 of your journey into Promised Land living. I want to share a story with you about when I was in elementary school in Florida. We had this thing called the bike parking lot. We all rode our bicycles to school back in those days, and they had this huge field filled with sand and these concrete, they call them stobs, where you would put your tire in and lock your bike up, and all the kids would basically park their bikes standing up in this field right outside of our classroom. And I remember it was the end of the day. It was like 15 minutes left before the bell rang, and the teacher had given us free time, and we were all kind of talking and excited. And I was talking to the guy next to me, and he had this gigantic piece of chocolate cake sitting on the corner of his desk. I mean, this thing was a thing of beauty. It was topped with thick chocolate icing, and all day long he'd been talking about this cake. We'd all been kind of drooling over it. It was just a beautiful thing. And he was so excited because right after school he was going to get to eat that piece of cake. I remember the bell rung and we all scrambled and grabbed our books and we took off running out the door. We all were running out into this bike parking lot across the sand, and we're all screaming, "Ah!" As we're heading to our bikes. And as this guy's running along, all of a sudden he trips and that piece of cake flies out of his hand and goes flipping end over end and lands icing down in the sand. And I remember all of us who were kind of running around and we all just sort of stopped. It was like time stood still and we were like, oh no, this tragedy of this beautiful piece of cake upside down in the sand. And I remember watching that kid bend down and pick up the cake, and as he turned it over, the top was just completely coated with sand. It was now sandy chocolate icing on the cake. And he looked at it for a second, and then he shrugged his shoulders, and he took a giant bite, got on his bike, and took off driving home. I learned a lesson that day. Sometimes life doesn't go the way you expected it to. And it has a tendency to throw some sand on the icing of your cake. But it's still good. You can scrape the icing off, there's still cake. But a little sand's not going to hurt you either. What if life turned out the way that you didn't expect? We all have these ideas and dreams about how we expect life to turn out, but what if God's plan for you was different than what you expected it to be? What if you felt like life, or maybe even God, had kicked some sand onto the icing of your cake? Well, you could spend your life moaning about it and being bitter about what should have been or could have been, or you can scrape the icing off the cake and eat it anyway. Or you can just bite into the icing and realize a little sand's not going to hurt you. Sometimes if you trust God and just scrape the icing off and still enjoy the cake, God will surprise you and re-ice that cake with something even better. Module 7 is about learning how to appreciate and surrender your life and your expectations to God's plan for you. And Cheryl wants to help you in this module really get a grip on the things in life that you are holding on to that are not part of what God really wants to do. To see them, to appreciate that God's plan is bigger and better, and surrender your expectations to Him so that He can bring into your life the good and better things than you could have imagined for yourself. I think you're going to enjoy this module. Really apply yourself. Let God surprise you.